Paddington in Peru might be the worst movie in the Paddington trilogy, but it's still pretty awesome, so let's talk about it. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and as I do with all my movie reviews, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Paddington in Peru, who made it, what it's about, all that good stuff. Then I'm going to share with you 5 things I absolutely love about the movie and 5 things that you might not like so much. Then hopefully we'll be able to figure out if Paddington in Peru is a movie that you should spend your time and money seeing in theaters. If that kind of thing sounds cool to you and you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out, make sure you subscribe. Okay, so a quick plot summary off of IMDb. Paddington returns to Peru to visit his beloved Aunt Lucy, who now resides at a home for retired bears. With the Brown family in tow, a thrilling adventure ensues when a mystery plunges them into an unexpected journey. Now, up until this point, the first 2 Paddington movies have been directed by Paul King, both written and directed by him. And this is the first movie in the trilogy that is not written and directed by him, and instead is the directorial debut of Dougal Wilson, I think is how you pronounce his name. It still stars all the original cast except for Sally Hawkins, who is replaced by Emily Mortimer. I guess there was a scheduling conflict or something like that where Sally Hawkins couldn't make it, which in my opinion did really leave a hole in this movie. She is a massive part of why I enjoyed the first 2. But aside from that, everyone else returns. Now, if you haven't seen any of the Paddington movies, I know they're really big in the UK and maybe not as much here in the States, but if you haven't seen these movies, you absolutely have to do yourself the favor of watching them. They are some of the most beautiful, heartfelt family dramas with one of the most adorable and lovable main characters that I've seen in a long time. And Paddington in Peru, the 3rd movie in that series, does live up to that in some ways. So let's go to the notes and talk about the 5 things that I think really worked with this movie. First up, the feels. Paddington 3 or Paddington in Peru has the exact same heartfelt warmth that the first 2 have. Yes, it seems on the surface like it's just a kid's movie or a lighthearted family movie, but it's really so much deeper than that. It's a story about a young immigrant child that comes to another land and tries to find a family there. And in this movie, we get to see him kind of return to where he came from and learn more about himself. And those themes are things that I feel that a lot of us can really appreciate and connect with. I know for myself, I personally definitely can. So yeah, just like the first 2 Paddington movies, and in some ways in its own unique way, with its own unique twist, this 3rd film does so much as far as making you feel for the characters and to connect with the story that they're trying to tell. Additionally, I think a lot of the performances are really strong. The actor that does the voice for Paddington, he has the most soothing, sweet voice I think I've ever heard in a person. You also have a couple of cameos in this one, or I guess I shouldn't say cameos because they have more significant roles, but Olivia Colman and Antonio Banderas make appearances in this movie, and they absolutely knock it out of the park, especially Olivia Colman. She is so delightful and awkward, and also has this air of something not quite being right with her just under the surface the entire movie. And then of course Antonio Banderas just kind of plays his swashbuckling, handsome debonair role that he plays so often and so well. Also, it's really cool to see the younger actors that play the kids in the Brown family. Now they're all grown up. The daughter is going off to college and the son, I believe, is in high school. And it's just kind of cool to see them portraying this role that we've seen them play over all these years and kind of watching their characters grow and develop. Aside from that, though, the movie is visually stunning. This is number 3 in my list. It looks so freaking good. And all 3 movies in this franchise have been absolutely incredible visually, especially with the CG and the special effects and what they're able to do with Paddington and his micro expressions and the hair on his face and everything, and really on his entire body because he's a bear. But it looks so much better than I feel like it has any right to look with the budget that they have. Not to say that they have a low budget by any means, but you look at some of these movies that are $200-300 million Marvel movies and Disney movies, and they don't look anywhere as good as Paddington in Peru, which I know sounds crazy to say, but it's just the truth. It is visually stunning, not just with the technical accomplishments of what they're able to do here, but the color palette is vibrant and welcoming. The movie really does a thing here, and it's not just visually, but it's with the world that they build, where it makes you want to exist in that world or to visit that world or to spend more time in that world. And for me, that is one of the best things that a movie can do. If I leave a movie and I feel the urge afterwards to revisit it, or I just want to peer beyond the frame and see what else is going on there. I feel like that's something that's really powerful and is a sign that a movie is doing a really good job. And this absolutely does that. Aside from that, there is plenty of humor and whimsy in this movie. It is so funny in so many different ways. I feel like, and we'll get into, as I mentioned, some of the cons a little later on, but with the writing of this movie, one of the great things that they do with writing is in the jokes that they tell and kind of the throwaway one-liners and responses that characters have to each other. It's so authentic, but heightened authenticity, if that makes any sense, where these sound like things that people would say, but only people that are incredibly funny. And here's what it is. Have you ever had a moment where, there's a conversation going on, something's happening, and you get a spark in your brain that causes you to say something, and that thing just hits so hard and makes everyone in the room crack up laughing? That unique experience is what this movie does, except the whole way through. Everyone is regularly saying the perfect funny line at whatever is occurring around them. And it totally does that. And the first two movies definitely did that as well. And the last pro that I'll give for Paddington in Peru is that this is a movie that the entire family can enjoy. And that is something that we maybe don't get a lot of, especially nowadays. Oftentimes you'll get movies that either are for adults, clearly, and kids aren't going to be able to connect with them very well. And then you have movies that are just aimed directly at young kids. And, the adults, we go there to watch it with our kids or, with our niece and nephew or whatever. And it's not something that we personally get a lot out of. But this movie, Paddington in Peru, and the entire Paddington trilogy, these are movies that kids will love. They'll get so much enjoyment out of them. And adults will get so many deeper things. They'll still get the laughs and the jokes and the fun times, but they'll also get more depth from the movie. You'll get things that will move you, that will open up your mind to other realities, to other lives that people live, and also maybe even connect with yourself and with your upbringing and the things that you've experienced. So there's really something in this that everyone can enjoy. Now, all that being said, it is not a perfect movie. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it is the worst of the Paddington trilogy. So I'm going to share with you now 5 things that I think maybe didn't work as well in this movie and that might be an issue for you. First up, with Paddington in Peru, there is maybe a sense of a lack of originality. The first 2 movies are incredibly creative and original in a lot of the ways that they tell their stories, and even with some of the characters. And with this one, it felt a little more like we've already seen a lot of this, and there weren't a lot of times where things would happen that I didn't expect to happen. So in that sense, it does lack a bit of that originality and uniqueness that the first 2 movies had. Second up, there are some pretty clear pacing issues in the movie. There's a lull in kind of the center of the movie where it slows down a bit and it feels like we're kind of not getting to the point for a little while. Now, of course, as it does kind of come to the end of the movie, it ramps back up, and the ending is one of the best parts of the movie. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that somewhere in the middle, I felt like it kind of slowed down, and it felt almost as if we were wasting time on things that weren't as important. The third thing I want to talk about is characters not being used as much as I would have liked to have seen. And specifically, as odd as it might be to say, Paddington. Paddington, we definitely get plenty with him, but it almost feels at times like he is not the focus of this movie, and that there are other things occurring around him that become the focus and in a way become more interesting than what's happening with him. Now, again, this is something that kind of has to do with that pacing, where in the middle of the film, we kind of pull away from Paddington in a way and follow some other storylines. And so we kind of lose focus on him and his specific story. Whereas, again, in the first 2, they were very much about Paddington and revolved around him almost the entire time. So it did feel like the focus was a little off here. Probably the fourth con that I'll say for this movie is the movie does take place largely in Peru. And we do get to see a bit of the Peruvian history and culture, but I would have really liked to see a lot more in this. It almost feels like they dip their toe into kind of the Peruvian history and culture and then just kind of pull right out of it and don't really get too involved with that. They don't show a lot of that. So if you're looking to see Paddington in a whole new world, a whole new adventure, in a whole new place, it did feel a little bit lacking there. There's definitely some things. I don't want to say that they don't delve into that culture and history at all. They certainly do, but it just felt it felt kind of like a diet soda version, if that makes any sense. It's like, yeah, you still get the same kind of concept and flavor, but it's just a little diluted. And then the last con I'll say, which is a con, yes, but is also a pro in some ways, which is that going into this movie, there was no way that it could live up to the prior two, especially the second movie. And so you come into this with either expectations that are way too high and that the movie will never be able to live up to, or you end up lowering your expectations because you are already going in assuming it's not going to be as good as the last two. And so with that, it can create kind of an issue in your perception of the movie where either you're sitting there waiting for it to prove something to you, or the opposite, where you're going in with rose-tinted glasses thinking this is going to be the greatest movie ever made. And then when it turns out to be just a really good movie, it just doesn't live up to your expectations. So that is a con, but again, also can be a pro because the series is so freaking good that there's just no way this could be as good as the last two. So who do I think Paddington in Peru is for, if anyone? And the answer to that question is it's for everyone. This movie, I think young kids are going to absolutely enjoy it. As I mentioned, it is bright and colorful and vivid, and there's lots of fun, silly jokes all over the place. I think kids are going to have a blast watching it. But I also think that adults, especially adults, and I'll just say it like this, like myself, who are multi-ethnic and multicultural, a movie about a young bear discovering or rediscovering where he comes from and trying to find out who he is and realizing, maybe that he's a bit of many things, I think is a story that a lot of us can connect with and relate to. And even if you can't, it's beautiful to be able to dive into another reality, another world, another life that people are living, and to kind of learn and observe that. So I think this is a movie that everyone can enjoy in one way or another. And I absolutely recommend you check it out in theaters. It's going to be in theaters on Valentine's Day here in the States. So if you get a chance, get out there and check it out. If you've already seen Paddington in Peru, let me know what you think in the comments below. Where does it rank in your trilogy? I think for me, it is definitely going to be in last place, but again, it's still a fantastic movie. So I absolutely recommend it. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time. All right, be good.